This is still Good Morning Kenya. If you're just joining us, you're right in time for our last conversation this Thursday morning, and it's all about foods, from chapatis to foods right now, but we talk about organic, or if you may, indigenous foods. That is our center of conversation this morning on our lifestyle segment, and we just want to find out more about indigenous foods for healthy living. My guest in studio this morning will be helping us unpack all of this, what you need to know as a Kenyan, even as you get towards the festivity season. What kind of foods do you need to be eating in this time? That is what we want to talk about, and we'll start with the only lady in this panel. That is Kate Kibara, who is a clinical nutritionist, health coach, hydrotherapist. She carries many titles, but we'll go with those ones for now. Good morning, Kate. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm glad to be here.
Good to have you on board.
Thank you.
Also, we have Collins Otieno, and it's not Otieno, it's actually Otieno Ochieng. I got it correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Who is the chairman, Participatory Ecological and Land Use Management, that is PELAM, Executive Director, CREP, Acting Chair, SCOPE. He also carries many titles, but for today we'll go with those three words. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
How are you
it's
doing?
My pleasure to be here. I'm doing very well. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
And we also have John Kariuki, who's the Vice President, Slow Food Foundation for Biodiversity. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah. Fair enough. So let's just start from the beginning. I mean, we talk about organic foods, we talk about indigenous foods. You keep saying these are the best foods. You know, this is the way to go. And obviously for you, Collins, you had a lot of organization. Like I told our viewers, you carry many titles, but to just go with the three of them for now. Yeah. Clearly the head of good number of organizations. When you look at all these organizations that you had so far for this number of years and intertwined it with organic or indigenous foods, what can you say have been the gains made so far when it comes to just crossing that bridge and try to embrace the indigenous foods?
Thank you very much, Doreen. I want to say, as PELAM Kenya, that's Participatory Ecological Land Use Management, which has 56 member organizations in this country, we promote organic agriculture as a basic way of producing food. Broadly, we talk of what we call agroecology. This is agriculture that addresses issues of agroecology, life, how life sustains itself and support other living organisms within its environment. So far we've worked with the farmers and sensitized them to know the value that they get when they eat organic food. And on the other hand, we are also encouraging both the consumers and the producers to be aware of the foods that they eat. We have foods that with the time we have neglected, but actually even the Ministry of Agriculture has recognized that they are quite valuable foods. They now call them traditional high-value crops. Initially they were called orphan crops. These are crops like cassava, sorghum, millet, sweet potatoes, and these are real good foods for us. And you find that the way we are raising our children, they are not eating these foods regularly, and they are missing out on a big issue. So this is what we are basically trying to do as a way of introducing this.
All right. Yeah. You say that they were initially called orphan.
Yes.
Why?
Because, you know, we neglected them as a society. We went to eating bread, butter, you know, bacon, chapati. Of course, chapati is not that bad. But these are foods that, you know, with the time, we as parents, actually, this has been our failure. We have neglected them, and with the time we've realized that we are losing out in a big way. And based on this, we've started promoting them back so that we produce them. These crops also help us adapt to climate change. You know, there is increasing weather variability, and as a country, as a continent, we need to embrace our local foods that have value, that are able to withstand those weather changes. For instance, crops like cassava, sorghum, millet, those are crops that are able to withstand drought. There are varieties that are early maturing and therefore are able to cushion us when we have our staple food like maize failing because of maybe rains have disappeared during the long rainy season. So that is the essence of this, and this is why we now call them traditional highly valued foods.
Okay, well said. And you've mentioned very important points when it comes to consumers, to producers,
Yes.
as well as trying to embrace more of our local foods, because it looks like, as where we stand, we are really taking in a lot of what we call the junk or even outside foods, as opposed to what we as Kenyans or even as Africans knew to be our traditional foods. But we'll come to that in a bit. John, let me just come to you. You are the VP Slow Food Foundation.
Yes.
Obviously, it was formed to try and ensure that we make strides when it comes to, like, what Collins is saying, traditional foods or even organic or indigenous foods. But what has the progress been so far in this particular organization when it comes to the embrace of this organic foods?
Actually, I'll start from our history. Slow food was started in 1989, and it was started to fight against fast food. That's why, a long time ago. And this was after the first fast food restaurant was opened in Rome. So Slow Food is not a Kenyan organization, but a global organization. And our main focus is on defense of food biodiversity and raising awareness on conscious food choices. So when we talk about slow food, I know that there are those who think that it's about growing food slowly, it's about eating slowly, but that's not the case. Slow food applies a holistic, we have a holistic approach towards food. So we are looking at food from the farm to the fork, looking at all the processes that are there. But on the other side, we are trying a lot to encourage farmers and communities to go back to their traditional foods, because there are a lot of health benefits, as my colleague Colin said. So we have a philosophy that we call good, clean, and fair food. Good because we are entitled to good food. Clean because we want food that is free from agrochemicals, and fair because we want farmers to get a fair compensation for their work. So, and as we are doing this, we have a number of projects that we try to carry out with the communities. We have a project that goes into the direction of cataloging all the traditional foods that are disappearing. Because you realize that we may be talking about traditional foods, but then nobody knows about them. So we are cataloging these products, ensuring that people know that these products are there, these indigenous foods are there, and to invite them to do something to save them. I know Kenya is a very diverse country. We have 43 different tribes, and each community has its own gastronomic traditions. So what we try to do is to ensure that all these products that belong to these communities are documented. Just to give an example, we are working with the Maasai Community. And with the Maasai Community, what we are trying to do is to protect the red Maasai sheep. Because the red Maasai sheep is an indigenous breed that comes from that community. But nowadays it's very difficult to find a pure red Maasai sheep. And the reason is because of cross-breeding between the red Maasai sheep and Bloopers from South Africa and other exotic breeds. So for us, we're interested in protecting that indigenous breed because it's adapted to the Maasai land, and it does well, and it's also resistant to diseases. So as slow food, this is our approach. And also working with cooks from like at different levels. And we are looking at cooks from 5-star restaurants and hotels to cooks at kiosks, because we want to ensure that quality food is available to everyone. And these indigenous foods are available, and we are also trying to modernize our Kenyan cuisine. Because I know that if you look at a country like Italy, you have a lot of tourists who go to Italy to just taste their food. But when you come to Kenya, I don't think that we have like Kenyan restaurants outside. But Ethiopia as a country is also doing very well. So we have to find ways of ensuring that people are, we modernize our cuisine so we also attract young people.
Makes a lot of sense. You talked about, the local communities, whereby obviously every community in this country, there's what they are accustomed to. There's the food that just describes that community. And you gave an example of the Maasai community. What is so peculiar about that Maasai community? I mean, when you look at, there's so many other communities, like there's the Luyas, who for them it's, it's chicken. Maybe, I don't know if I'm just being biased. But there's so many other communities. So what's so peculiar about the Maasai community? We want to take a very quick break. When you return, you'll be telling us at least about that, even as you continue to understand more about these indigenous foods and why Kenyans need to embrace these kinds of foods. Time for that break. When we return, plenty more of this conversation. Stay with us.
utakuwa wa ndizi.
Na saa zingine unakuwa na matunda mengi. Hayo matunda yakiwa mengi yanakuwa na shida kuuza. Kwa hivyo badala ya kuuza tunaweza kuyatengeneza yakawa ya kuwekwa kwa muda mrefu.
Tumfuge samaki kwa kijumba.
Tilapia ni aina ya samaki anayehimili sana magonjwa na hukua kwa haraka, hivyo hufugwa kwa wingi. Silver Cryptid inayojulikana sana kama omena ama dagaa ni kipenzi cha watu wengi.
Basi ungana nasi Jumapili saa 9:30 hapa KBC Channel 1 kwa mseto kamili wa kilimo.
You've also finished your plan?
Research and Development Manager.
Whoa.
But I don't see your name.
What?
Dear, don't be too upset. Just calm down.
Why are you answering my phone?
Do you feel guilty yet?
Oh, her. What did you say?
Our family is a total mess. I don't feel too good.
What happened?
A woman called Dad earlier.
用一段故事建筑一座城堡，回放进去后就不再打。
Welcome back to the program. We continue with our conversation on indigenous, or if you may, organic foods. Now, before you went on break, John, before I come to Kate, we're talking about the communities, and we just wanted to know what is so peculiar or different about the Maasai community.
Actually, as Slow Food, we work with indigenous communities, and the Maasai community is one of them. And one of the unique thing about the Maasai community is that they have not lost their traditions. Their meal, their food is mainly based on meat, milk, and blood, and this still happens today. As the other communities that, like the Kikuyu, are shying away from their traditional foods, the Maasai have kept their traditional food. And on the other side, I think the other interesting thing is that we have the Maasai Paradox. They eat a lot of meat, but they don't suffer from lifestyle diseases. So this is also something that is very interesting. The reason behind that is because they also use a lot of herbs. So the Maasai is very, very, very unique. And I think that when we try to promote Kenya outside, I think Maasai is one of our brand. So they are very unique.
Interesting. Yeah. All right, Kate, let me come to you. You are the founder of My Healthy Living Club. It looks like actually to be able to champion for most of these organic foods, that you need to either form organizations or be in one, just trying to ensure that we actually get there. Tell us more about My Healthy Living Club.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm a clinical nutritionist and a colon hydrotherapist, and through my work I train a lot of people on healthy living, healthy eating, just how to eat healthy. And it started with myself because I grew up obese, and then as it developed through my education, I realized that there's a lot of education that needs to be given out there. So because of talking to a lot of corporates, talking to a lot of people, they wanted to get that information where they can actually get it either day to day or in form of a virtual club where you get information that you need. And that also made me start Kids Organics, which is a company I run where we promote organic foods by packaging, distributing and selling organic teas, juices, honey, etc., etc. So that's how it began.
All right. So for you, it was more of a personal experience, not just championing for indigenous foods because people are doing it, organizations are doing it. For you, it was more personal.
No, for me, I studied law, but in between studying law, I was very obese and I hated the way I looked. So my passion was to to speak about eating healthy. I wanted to look good. I wanted to feel great. So I think that also is what really made me get into eating healthy, eating organic foods, and it became into a career without me knowing that that's what I was actually doing as a passion.
Okay, well said. I mean, Collins, let me just come to you. When you listen to Kate's story, this is actually the story of also a good number of Kenyans.
True.
And particularly women. Yeah. And some would cite obesity to obviously the kinds of foods that we eat, mostly junk. For some, it's a bit genetic. Where is that balance? Is it all entirely the kinds of foods that people eat?
A big part of this comes from the food, but of course there are also other physical activities that go with this. And this is why we've also formed this organization we call Scope Kenya. This is Schools, Colleges, Permaculture project in Kenya. And this tries to introduce this issue of nutritious and organic foods production in schools. So it starts, for you to eat healthy, it starts from the soil. The soil has to be healthy. It has to be living. The soil has health. They have those organisms that are able to break the organic matter that are being recycled for it to be able to produce the nutrients that the crops need. So if you are to produce organic food, it starts there. And Pelham member organizations and CREP program, we train farmers on how they can be able to assess their soils, to know if they are healthy enough, how they can put in organic farm inputs, organic fertilizers and foliar feeds to produce organic foods. These foods, once they are produced, we encourage the farmers to consume them first, because in some contexts you find that the farmers tend to sell them because they attract premium returns in the supermarket. But we tell them that you should be the first consumer so that you are healthy in the first place before you sell it. And of course, in some towns you can already see that we have organic food outlets. So we are getting to the consumer level where we are trying to enlighten the consumers that they need to be aware of the food that they eat. And this is where you find that, our children are obese because we take them out. What do they eat? It is chips, it is nyama choma, the sausages. That's what they do. They also sit on PlayStations at home. They are not active. In our days when we were growing up, it would be football, running with the tiles all over. So there are a number of issues, but food plays a very critical role. One of the things that I'm sure Kate will be talking about is currently we have an upsurge of lifestyle diseases like cancer, diabetes, and this is coming as a result of the foods that we are eating. There are a lot of chemicals that are being used in food production. We go to the market, you find that people look for the glossy tomatoes, yes, the big ones and the juicy. Some of these are preserved with chemicals, and these chemicals have an impact on our health. So this is why we are trying to encourage consumers to be aware, and they will not act unless they form consumer organizations that can be able to monitor how food is produced at different places and give them information. If you go to the West, in Europe, there are very strong consumer organizations that advise people. They say, don't buy vegetables that are produced in this particular place because they use a lot of chemicals. And consumers don't touch until they meet the threshold that those consumer organizations are setting up. So there is a lot that is going into this, but food is quite critical. Cancer, it was being talked about in the previous session, and the upsurge of cancer in this country is now quite a telling story, and we need to find out. In Europe, it has been confirmed that some of the chemicals that are being used in production of food or management of the farms are leading to cancer. So our country also needs to do something about this. There are chemicals that have been outlawed by this in this country by the Poisons and Licensing Board, but they find their way into the market through our porous borders. Farmers use them, and just to produce, and this is really impacting on our health. Yeah.
Well, I feel like this is more of not just talking about the foods and we need to champion for them, but also more like an informative conversation, even for me, because I mean, I believe a good number of Kenyans don't even understand the importance of having that good soil, as you mentioned, for the purpose of having good food that is beneficial to our health.
Yes.
All right, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Right, let me come to you, John, and this is perhaps in respect to even training, because as Collins mentioned, we have that that capacity of talking about these foods, but do you even know how to produce them? When it comes to training of these farmers, what exactly do you train them on? Is it in the terms of the foods they produce, the seasons, like Collins is mentioning, maybe what is taken from outside when it comes to preservations of these foods that they produce? What exactly does it entail?
Actually, it entails like our trainings start from the seed, because without seed you cannot produce food. And we have a very big challenge when it comes to seeds, because most of our seeds are commercial. So we start from the seeds, how to produce their own seed, save their own seed, and then reproduce their seeds at their farms. And then we also train them on how to produce these different indigenous crops. And actually we get a lot of information from the communities, because I think that these are the biggest scientists. We may try to bring in like research institutions, but I think the biggest researchers are farmers. So we work with them. Actually what we do is to facilitate so that this knowledge can come out. And then, of course, I think our main focus is on promoting these products. So this is where we mainly come in. Like, how do we ensure that these products are getting to the market? Like by connecting farmers with food outlets, with chefs at different levels. These chefs can be able to buy these traditional products from the farmers and then transform them in their kitchens. And then on the other side, we're also looking at organic markets, organic farmers markets. How can we ensure that farmers are able to sell their products directly to the potential consumers? Like also trying to eliminate all these middlemen that are in between, so that they can talk about their products, their history, and the like. And then on the other side, what we are trying to do is to come up with the concept of narrative labeling, trying to tell a story about a product. So when you look at the red Maasai sheep, there is a story behind that breed. When you talk about the Ogiek honey that comes from the Mau forest, there is a story behind that honey, because the Ogiek as a community, they are forest dwellers, so they mainly rely on forest resources for survival. But then when you look at their honey is threatened because of deforestation in Mau forest. So what we try to do is to tell a story, so that at least consumers can also understand the quality of the product that they are buying or they are consuming. Because I know that we have talked a lot about organic food in Kenya, and we are also in the process of developing the organic policy in the country in partnership with COAN, but I think that we have not been able to get the policy. So we need again to continue working with also the policy makers, the local authorities, to ensure that at least we have policy backing in what we do. Okay, so just from what you're saying, does it mean that we really have a long way to go? It's not really almost somewhere there. We are almost there, because like we are based in Nakuru County. And the other day we organized a symposium in partnership with the PELAM, and it was a symposium about indigenous foods and agroecology. And of course we partnered with the city. Nakuru now is a city, so we partnered with the Nakuru city, and of course we agreed that we'll be organizing that event on an annual basis. So the policy makers, the local authorities are also interested in promoting healthy eating at local and national level. So we are not very far from there. All right, fair enough. We just need to continue working together with farmers and other like-minded organizations. All right. Now, Kate, in the capacity of a nutritionist, I mean, when you look at the rise in cases of most of these lifestyle diseases, what you call the cardiovascular diseases, diabetes perhaps, cancer, like we just keep mentioning, most of this is attributed to what we call the junk food. But also a good number of Kenyans will tell you, I can't just be eating organic, ama chakula za shamba kila, so I at least need to eat something sweet. What is your take on that, and what has been your experience even as you go about, perhaps talking to Kenyans or even training Kenyans in the various organizations or clubs that you hold?
Thank you for that. I think when you look at what you're eating, we always talk about what you eat. Honestly, what you put on your table is what determines your health. Are you healthy? are you not healthy? And in this day and age, we need to eat poison-free food. We've seen that foods that have poisons, and when I talk about poisons, I'm talking about the synthetic chemicals, the synthetic fertilizers, the synthetic pesticides, foods that are over-processed, whereby you're not taking the actual ingredient, you're just taking something that is similar to that is more tasty, and basically we only add a lot of toxins. And toxins, by toxins I mean preservatives, colors, additions to make the food look nice and taste better. We preserve it even more. We change the format of the actual food. But what we need to understand is, what are you giving that? How are you feeding your system with that? As a nutritionist, you're made of nothing but cells. Research says that you're made of about 75,000 trillion cells. And for you to wake up, to be healthy, for your cells to rejuvenate, for your organs to be okay every single day, for you to fight disease, because disease is a process. It's something that happens every day. You need to take antioxidants. You need to take vitamins and minerals. You need to feed that system in a healthy way, so that the basic unit of cell, the basic unit of life, your cell, that makes the tissues, that makes the organs, and that organ is you, protects you from what that is happening. You've asked me about, can you eat 100% organic? Maybe you cannot. You may not, because even as right now, we are exposed to free radicals. We breathe free radicals. But you need to eat healthy, life-giving food that is high in antioxidants. And I'm talking about vitamins, minerals, vitamin A, vitamin C, selenium, coenzyme Q10, that will actually protect me if at all I'm spoiling myself. Maybe I decide my spoiling days on Sundays, and that's when I'm eating my junk food. I take all these foods that are high in cholesterol or high in toxins. If I've been eating all these antioxidants during the week, they will protect my system, because we were built for our cells to rejuvenate and to heal themselves by providing the right nutrients. So if I'm taking the right vitamins and the right minerals and the right nutrients from the food that I have, it means I'm protecting my health in an overall way. But remember, lifestyle diseases are the increase. We have diabetes right now in children. Diabetes type 2. We have type 1 that you're born with, but you have the diabetes type 2 that is coming because of the lifestyle. Look at the increase of cancer today. Everywhere you look, everyone has cancer. And what is the cause? As much as we do not know specifically, we can link them to highly processed foods, so foods that are not natural. It's not like you got a banana and ate it as a banana. You got that banana and ate it as maybe something that was deep fried or frosted or was somewhere on the shelf. So we are talking about preservatives. Organic foods do not contain all these nitrates and all these preservatives that may create harm to your health. So when you talk about like our cured meats, when you talk about our milk products, when you talk about all these fresh produce, that when I walk into a supermarket, you look for all this nice looking tomato that has very nice color. You ignore the one that is dented, not knowing that this other one is sprayed for it to look that way and for it to live longer. So these preservatives, when it gets into my body, even if it is formaldehyde or even if it is that nitrate, and formaldehyde, as we know, is a preservative for dead bodies, for corpses. So even if it gets into my body, it does not know it is in Kate's body. It just works in the same way. I'm talking about the colors that are added. We have the brown, the red color in the juices. We have the blue colors in the cakes. We have flavors like the vanilla flavor, which in the food is they are accepted as GRAS, generally recognized as safe. So they're introduced into the food industry. But with time, research has shown that they are causing a lot of problems. So I'm taking a vanilla flavor, thinking I'm taking vanilla that we grew somewhere in Nairobi, but I'm actually taking a chemical that is known in the chemical industry to kill lice. So when you continue with this, and I'm even looking at the growing of our animals, it's not only the crops that should be grown free of pesticides, synthetic fertilizers and pesticides. I'm looking at our animals as well. These days we are so commercial based that I want my chicken to mature within 3-5 weeks. So what I do, you feed them with hormone-based foods or animal bioproducts where they expand and grow within a short time. So you're not eating the protein, you're not getting the value of the food that you're eating. What you're taking is what the chicken is being fed on. We look at our cows, the antibiotics that they are fed on, so you're not getting the quality, you're not getting the omegas, the fatty acids that you need. And what happens, you just transfer all those hormones and the antibiotics into your system. And this is also a reason that has made us become antibiotic resistant, because we are taking all these foods that have all this meat, because we are a meat eating country, and then now you're antibiotic resistant. There's a lot of allergens, there's a lot of weakened immunity. And then the hormones, if I'm taking this chicken, even if it is my child, my 12-year-old, who have exposed to taking chicken that is grown with the hormones, not organically, you find that now the hormone transfers into this person and they start now expanding like the chicken. They start behaving the same way. There's hormonal imbalance, and hormonal imbalance causes a lot of cancers, especially in women, even in men. So what we need to do is to look at the origin of what we are eating, because it is the leading cause of our lifestyle diseases and our haphazard nature, where we don't know what is happening, where somebody who thought was eating healthy is becoming ill. And as I finish, I remember one time I had a training with a doctor, and the doctor said, if God knew that we were going to, when he was doing the Garden of Eden, because that's what we need, to eat healthy, to eat natural ingredients that your body understands, then he would have opened a hospital at the Garden of Eden. And that has made me think for a long time. What we have is really enough for us. It's only that we've adulterated, we've changed it. We just want to commercialize everything and make money without understanding where your health comes from and where your cell is.
Well, Kate, you've really talked about a lot, and I think it's really important for also us to understand as Kenyans. But since you do not want Kenyans to grow as fat as the chicken that you likened it to, and obviously we know that we can also not eat 100% organic foods every day. Again, as a nutritionist, where do we strike the balance? Because also you talked about the flavors, the preservatives. As a consumer, I may really not know the impact or the effect of what I'm consuming in respect to the kind of preservative that was used for this particular food. So as a consumer, how do I get to know, how do I get to strike the balance between the junk and the organic food?
I think that most importantly, read labels. When you go to the supermarket, just look at what you're eating. I'm very careful at doing that when I'm shopping.
Which is not a culture we have as Kenyans, because you just want to go get bread, pick from the shelf. You want to go get, maybe a spice, pick it from the shelf.
And that's why you're 85% responsible for your health condition. If you do not do that, then you'll end up taking things that are not healthy without you knowing. But we have the organic mark, which is the Kilimo mark. If you go to the supermarket and look at the vegetables or anything on the shelf with that mark, you're safe to do that. If you're going to buy spices that are not organic, you'll just find that they are written, that they added all these things. Maybe you could avoid that. But if you're not doing that totally, taking vegetables, fruits, drinking water, I'm telling you, whole foods is what protects you. The cell is protected by vitamins and minerals and antioxidants. We have things like vitamin A. We always talk about taking a carrot. We always talk about vitamin C. Take your orange every day. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. It's because if you add fruits and vegetables to your diet, and it's something that we do not do. We don't take salads. We do not take our 3 to 4 servings of fruits every day. Your plate naturally, even if you're not looking at labels, half of your plate should be veggies, whereby you have 3 to 4 colors. You have maybe your lettuce, you have your tomato, you have something else. And all these colors represent a nutrient. And those nutrients, not only are they the antioxidants that counteract the free radical from your system, so your body is healing and getting the nutrients as it eats, it also has the phytochemicals. If you're taking garlic in your food, you're maybe making meat that has a lot of cholesterol. For example, there's allicin. Allicin will help in reducing that from the garlic that you'll add that. Allicin is also anti-cancer. You've added tomatoes to that food. Tomatoes contain lycopene. Lycopene is also anti-cancer, so you're preventing that as you're eating because of the phytochemicals or the natural food property that protects us and builds our health. You have things like the cruciferous vegetables that are also anti-cancer. You have things like the sweet potatoes. If you go to a traditional foods that contain plant-based estrogens, so you're not there getting the hormonal imbalance, you're there protecting your cells. You have things like the green leafy veggies that are high in iron, that are high in magnesium, that actually protects you. You're taking juices like the herbal juices, like maybe nettle, the green ones, wheatgrass, which contains megahertz that actually fight all these things that you're eating every day without knowing. So the solution is, as much as you're not going to read these labels, but my number one advice is that read what you're buying, know what you're eating, know what is on your plate. But it's not going to happen. Add your portions of fruits and veggies every day. Ensure that you're drinking enough water. Exercise, all those things that you're told all the time. Healthy living is step by step, not just bringing everything in. Reduce your intake of highly processed food. If you're taking a lot of fried foods, reduce that. If you're taking a lot of junk food, reduce that.
All right.
And make a balance, and there'll actually be a change in your health.
Makes a lot of sense. Healthy living is step by step. Try to strike a balance. That is what Kate is saying. I mean, Collins, Kate is speaking with a lot of passion.
True.
Trying to enlighten Kenyans.
Exactly.
Do you feel that is the gap that you're having towards, embracing completely, if I can mention, organic foods, the consumer, producer, creation of awareness, and what can we do, even just as common Kenyans?
Thank you. Actually, that is the big gap. And what we can do first and foremost is you as an individual, actually you can produce some of the food that you consume. Whether you are in Nairobi here, we have urban agriculture that you just need a sack and you can grow your vegetables. 2-3 sacks.
So that means you don't need to be in Ushago to be eating healthy.
Yes, you can produce your food. You need 3 sacks, and actually if you're a family of about 4, you'd have enough vegetables that you would be sure of how they've been produced. And it's not difficult. We have organizations under Pelham that can be able to support you if you want to do that. You can use old basins to produce some of these foods around your area. So that's critical. We can do something as individuals towards this. 2, we need to know where our food comes from. And this we can do if we form consumer groups that are able to help us trace the sources of our food, so that the labeling she's talking about, even when you get to the supermarket or whichever market, you can, this is tomato which has been produced in Makueni by this particular group. This orange is from this Mombasa, from this particular group, and there is a group that monitors how this is being produced. In such a way, we are being responsible for our health, taking that action that is needed. And 3, we need to lobby for enactment of policies, because without policies, there are not going to be resources to support some of this. This is why we need to really push our government.
This is what John was talking about earlier?
Yes, both at the county and the national level. Of course, it should start at the national level, so that we have organic agriculture policies. And the government should take deliberate action to address this. If you see the cost of healthcare currently on diseases like cancer, it's overwhelmed us. The NHIF, the insurance that majority of Kenyans can be able to afford, can hardly support the patients. And we have already outweighed the current health system. So we need to take deliberate actions to, push the government. Right now, we have people who are campaigning, our candidates at different levels, presidential. They need to be talking to us on what they are going to do about our food, about the healthcare. If they are not talking about some of these things, then we need to know that we have the wrong candidates.
Now you're taking it a bit political, but does that, wouldn't that mean that now it's a way of capturing Kenyans, just sort of like wooing Kenyans?
You see, it is not just talking about it. They have to explain how. Because without that, then we cannot realize some of these gains. So if they are going to help us address some of these issues, then we know that we are going to be safe health-wise. When you are consuming organic food, we are talking about our environment being healthy. We don't have a lot of chemicals that are being sprayed in the farms, which gets to our water we consume and affects our bodies. We are talking about our health as individuals. Actually, organic foods have natural taste, the way Kate has explained, and they have the nutrients that we desire. So it's not that they are not tasty. If I give you sweet potatoes from Kabondo, where we work in South Nyanza, you'd find that it's very tasty, and it's the potato that the Queen Elizabeth eats. She does not eat any other potato. It has to come from that place, and it is organic. So it is very tasty, it is nutritious, and this is what we need to do. So we need to take action as individuals, as civic society organizations, as consumers. And the consumers can dictate. If they insist on labeling of every food, then you will find that people will be labeling and explaining what is used. What Kate is saying, before you pick any food, can you read, is it a genetically modified food? Is it organic food? How has it been produced? Then with that, you'll find that even the producers are going to be conscious and they're going to be responsive to the needs of the consumer. In such a way, you'd find that we would be moving together.
All right, and I think that's why we have you here. Just also for Kenyans to understand. Let me speak about Kenyans because, we are Kenyans.
True.
So speaking about our context, to understand the power that we as consumers, we have. Because, we can have on-end conversations about we need to eat organic foods. It's important for us. But do you know your power as a Kenyan, as a consumer, that you can actually fight for? I want proper labeling, like for instance the way you mentioned of these foods, for me to know what exactly I'm talking about, because I can talk about I want to strike a balance, but I don't even know what I'm buying sometimes.
And just to give an example, here in Nairobi we have organizations, like one organization, a member of Pelham Kenya, CSHEP. They work with particular farmers who produce organic foods, and they've identified consumers who are interested in this. So that food comes from the farmer directly to you. You can say, I'll be needing 2 baskets of these assorted foods, and it is brought to you. So this is something if Kenyans can embrace and say, give a shout that we need organic foods. Who can help us get organic foods that are certified and they monitor? Then in such a way you can be, and quite a number of people here in Nairobi now get that. So you can say, I'll be getting my consignments on Mondays and Thursdays every week, and you get that food. You are taking responsibility. The other bit, as I said earlier, you can produce in your backyard.
All right, John, let me come to you, and this is about farmer compensation, because we can talk about consumers, but we heavily rely on farmers and what they produce for us, especially as Kenyans. But do you feel, or do you think enough is being done for farmers when it comes to their payments, their reimbursements, or even compensations over what they do? And perhaps if not, what needs to be done? Is it also a question of policies, the way you're talking about earlier?
Yeah, I don't think that farmers are getting a fair compensation for what they are doing. And of course, I think that we have to remember that small-scale farmers produce over 80% of the food that we eat. But then when you look at the living standards of our farmers, they are always considered poor kings. And they are considered poor kings because, they produce a lot of food, but then they remain poor. And this is because of the prices that they get, especially the farm gate prices, and the different players in the food value chain. So we have like so many middlemen. For example, looking at Molo as a potato producing area. So we produce a lot of potatoes, but then when you look at the middlemen that are in between the small scale farmers and the food outlets or the end consumers, there are so many. So at the end, those who benefit a lot are the middlemen. So I don't think that the farmers, not the main person, but I think that we need policies that favor farmers or support farmers, so that at least they do the hardest work. But then why should they be earning peanuts for what they are doing? And giving also an example of like the coffee. Coffee is coffee is considered a gold. And it fetches very good prices at the international market. But then when you look at what Kenyan farmers are earning, they're earning peanuts. You go to a country like Italy, a small cup of espresso goes for €1.20. And that's about almost 150 Kenya shillings. But what trickles down to the small scale farmer or to the coffee farmers in Kenya is around 1% of that price. So we need to work with the government. We need to support farmers. Actually, we should always support farmers to lobby for policy changes, because we need masses for us to be able to influence the policies that we have in place. And then on the other side, I think as slow food and like-minded organizations, what we should try to do is to cut the middlemen, to open up markets for our farmers, so that, as I said earlier, they can sell the products directly to the consumers and to the end users. And then on the other side, I know that when you talk about organic versus conventional or standardized food production, people tend to think that organic is expensive. And that's why they will not go for organic products in markets.
Expensive does not taste good, just like what Collins mentioned.
Yeah, they always say that it's expensive and maybe the taste is not that good, because it doesn't have those additives, like it has said. But I think that we need to raise a lot of awareness, so that people know that, you may, I think that you have talked about supermarket. When you go to a supermarket, what do you look at? You look at the prices. You don't look at the label. You don't look at the quality. Yeah, just look at the price. That's what attracts you most. But I think that we have to remember that the small amount we save by buying bad food will be spent sometimes in the future, probably in hospital. So we have to educate our farmers on the need to pay maybe a small premium price for quality products. But we also have to ensure that this price is fair both for farmers and also for consumers. So we don't have to exploit the consumers. But you have to pay a premium price, just a small percentage, to ensure that at least farmers are compensated for what they do.
All right, and that's the purpose of creation of awareness.
Yes.
Just briefly, I want you to break it down for us, just quickly, that policy bit, because anytime